Hey, everybody. I've been stewing on a couple of ideas over the last week or two. And at first I wanted to talk about this sacred space that artists need to exist inside and how there's a lot of value to being an island in that way. But then time has a way of moving on, and your headspace gets shifted into these other places that also you need to account for. And they seem to balance each other out in the just really the perfect way. So meeting the idea of the artist as an island with the necessity of being part of a community. And I find that each of them has their own unique responsibility, and then there is a shared responsibility that goes into blending these two ideas and these two responsibilities and these two modes that we fit in as artists, musicians, creators, and just people in general. And it's important to realize that they are connected, that we exist as ourselves, and then we transplant that self into communal participation. So it makes sense that some part of ourselves is reflected and translated into whatever we're participating in and whatever groups that we're around. And then it becomes about how do we approach that interaction? Because we have to then take into account both ourselves as people and the environment that we're participating in. And in a best case scenario, those are a seamless transition, that the goals of us as selves and the goals of the friends and the family and the gigs that we take are directly related, that it's a one-to-one relationship, that everyone seems to share the same values. But that can be a very myopic and self-centered way to approach things, that it can very easily lead down the road of, if other people do not share the values that I share, then either I'm going to be crabby, or I'm going to be non-participatory, or I'm willfully not going to understand the empathy that is required to have a conversation between people who have different ideas. So that would be looking at things from the inside out, right? But if we flip the responsibility of those two things, and then we get this idea of boundaries, right? We get the idea of needing to know our own integrity and being aware of what we're spending our time and attention on. Right, because these two inevitable ideas meet each other somewhere in this gray area, or the perfect blue silver lining that is our responsibility as people to navigate. Right, that we are both interested in finding the most societally valuable versions of ourselves as individuals by doing whatever work that we do to make ourselves into, I suppose I'd say the value and character set that appeals most to us. But not to digress too far, that ends up being what we think that people want to see out of us in the end. So for the sake of conversation, let's say that there is a person here that we can uphold values that we find to be useful to ourselves, unadulterated by what other people seem to want from us, right? As an artist, it is our responsibility to cater for people, to be these unabashed birds of paradise, that creative recklessness is of some importance. But if this identity that we're chasing isn't met with a community of people who also seem to value at least something adjacent to it, right? That there isn't the synergy and there isn't a cooperation between people. If the environment is too adventurous, or if the environment is too safe, then the individual doesn't feel comfortable and feels as though they need to either dilute or fawn or censor the ultimate goal. And that leads to gripping and tightening and just generally being an unhappy person, right? And then depending on one's willingness to yield and let's say undercome, right? Or overcome, however you'd like to express it, right? We're undercoming our own expectations to overcome this required empathy that we need for this situation. We're able to participate in the scene to that degree, right? Whereas this weird triangle of our patience with our expectation with our time horizon, where do those all meet? And again, keep in mind that this is like a less than perfect situation, right? So we can sort of remedy that through our own independent work and through our own patience and through our own practice, and finding the self-care and the self-admiration and the wonder within our own artistic, creations. So it isn't that we're pushing back on resistance that we're getting from our environment, but it's that we're choosing to grow and develop and refine our voice and continue an artistic pursuit, like regardless of the situation. Like I want to say in spite of the situation, but we're not spiting the situation, right? It's not what we're doing. We're not spiting anything, right? That if I have an abundance of things that I don't necessarily care for, all of those things give me little clues as to what to look for in my day-to-day life that are adding to the dissatisfaction. And then it becomes about having the wisdom to know whether or not I can change those things, having the patience to accept the things that I cannot change, and then the understanding, the courage, and the fortitude to be able to change the things that I can, or at least be able to steer the boat into a different direction, right? That, nothing is instant, nothing happens overnight. Well, I don't know. Change my mind. I guess, I don't know. Like you can wake up with a different idea of yourself in the morning, as we always do, but far too many factors outside of what we're dealing with to be able to live in that delusion for too long. So stay on track, dude. So we're trying to find the intersection point between ourselves, our environment, our creative choices, the joy and surprise that we get from collaborating with people who have different ideas than we have, the beauty of having work be delegated across a number of people, and sharing physical space with others, right? Arguably one of the healthiest things that you can do is to spend time with others in community that you seem to get along with, and you're able to, I don't know, either be able to express or reserve your opinion in a way that feels comfortable. Finding a group of people that are able to both talk and listen, and then arriving to that point through one's own like curated self-experience. And I think that part of it, the curated self-experience, is really what I've been thinking about over the last few weeks. That it simply requires two things, right? It requires self-experience and it requires curation. And I think that can be simplified into awareness, but seen in two different modes, two different modalities. That it's our ability to be present in the moment, and it's our ability to reflect on moments and to be able to like project our imagination just beyond what we're experiencing right now. To be aware of the weight that we carry as like karmic beings, as people who have experienced things, who are debatedly going to experience more things, and who are all funneled through this nowness, through this experience that we are all sharing at the same time. And that the experience of nowness is completely void of reflection, right? Because we haven't gotten time to do it yet, And ultimately knowing that is where all the moments of reflection will come from, is this ability to be present in the now moment and be able to like understand what we're consuming, right? Understand where we exist in our own environment. I mean, maybe more of an analog for that would be the ability to find this flow as we're playing, and to be able to find this space of creative spontaneity and this thoughtless area where it's driven purely by improvisation, and there's no time for reservations and there's no time for expectations. The moment on the bandstand is this culmination of all the work that we have put in as artists, right? It's all prior reflection that we have done summed into a single experience, right? The experience of performance. And then there's the value of listening to yourself from a live performance. Oh boy, is that hard to do sometimes, because we quickly realize that our entire worldview comes crashing down. Or maybe better, that we're on the right track. Let's say that. Oh boy, I'm on the right track. That's fantastic. I can't believe we sounded as good as we did. Man, all of this work that I've been putting into my time feel has really been paying off in the end. Or man, I really worked on the chords to that song for a long time, and I'm so happy with how I was able to perform them. Right? I'd rather be on that side than, oh no, I can't believe that that's what I sound like. Or man, I didn't leave any space for the drummer to play anything today. True reflection. Yeah, we're able to look at ourselves previously in the present moment. And at this point, I think that the circle is starting to close itself up. Whatever conclusions we're able to draw from these moments of reflection lead us into new modes of self-awareness. And then depending on both how we spend our time, the attitude of how we spend our time, like considering how honest the reflection is, right? How are we really being honest with ourselves? And then towards the point of whatever output that you'd like to have, right? However coarse or gentle that is for you, we're able to work towards new moments of incorporation. And we have a new set of values. And with those values comes a new artistic projection of ourselves, somewhere teetering between these ideas of grandeur and of the future and how we see the world, influenced and audited by these moments of reflection and the awareness of how we have existed in space, all channeled through our ability to let go of all of that and to be able to listen, and take a couple deep breaths, and whether we're working by ourselves or working with others, be able to find these moments that are seemingly bigger than everything around us, that they articulate how we've been able to do things, that they are articulate in both the past, the present, and the future.